Okay, day 247. Tragic events in Las Vegas. And the thing I don't like about typical CNN coverage or mainstream media is it's kind of like the PP dossier or this reality winner thing. It's just, you just have to wait for the drip, drip, drip. You feel like you've been, struck dumb. You're dumbstruck by this news. There's nothing you can do. You just have to wait for details to come out. And the reason why I prefer this type of interactive news that we do is it immediately lets you start working theories about what potentially happened. I look at motive, motive, motive. Now you're going to hear all kinds of details that have nothing to do with motive, or all sorts of strange, weird motives being assigned to one lone gunman. It's much, much more likely that this is a state-run operation, because look at the history of state-run operations in the past and the numbers of people they kill. It's very unusual for one old guy to kill 50 people. Just very difficult. So all I'm saying is an alternative, looking at the alternative, you can immediately begin working theories to try to solve the case. Now here, if you're not familiar with it, this is an article from The Intercept, came out, called The Diplomatic Underground, came out exactly 30 days ago, August 30th. It was put out over the Labor Day weekend, so it didn't get much coverage, but it was talking about how Ote, the ambassador to the United Nations from the UAE, first of all, how he was going around to all these strip clubs scouting for girls, and then it also talked about him going to Las Vegas, that's the tie-in here, and doing this thing called Dumbo dropping, which was drug raping these teens, and he was having them sign this form called a Dumbo drop form, or a Dumbo form, which is basically saying, I give consent to the UAE to gang rape me with the whole cricket team or the whole soccer team or whatever. So if you haven't read the article, you can look at it, Intercept, Diplomatic Underground, August the 30th. Now the problem is now this article has come out, and the girls are going to start asking each other questions. Women in Las Vegas are asking themselves a question. Did you ever sign a form when you went to that party over at the UAE that the UAE threw? You remember that party? I wonder if that was us. And then they start coordinating the dates. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened here, but when the victims list does come out, I do want to go back and look at the Dumbo drop dates and correlate to see if those girls did go to those Dumbo drop parties. Again, you can have the theory that, oh, it's just the one person, and oh, the getaway car went that way, so let's take all the resources in the opposite direction, sort of like the John Wilkes Booth escape out of Washington. He went that way, and then the one bridge was left open. But it makes a lot more sense that this was a cleanup operation to me. To me, it just screams cleanup, but most people, wait for the CNN and MSM, version of events. But there's going to be one room, and what I've said before is there's going to be one room where there was it's one entry, one exit, no way out, and there's going to be a shooting pen, and that's going to be where most of the injuries are going to happen. And then later you go out into the audience, general audience, and you fire randomly as a cover. But you're going to invite those girls from these Dumbo drop parties to that, to that suite. So here, if you hadn't seen the article, this is Ote and a couple of his accomplice, and then I don't know if that's Andre Carson or not. Sure looks like him. I'm not saying that's Wasserman, but anyway, they're taking girls from here in DC, to New York for a Dumbo drop. Humpty Dumpty, they call it, Humpty Dumpty Foundation. Again, I didn't burn down the embassy in February of this year to get rid of DNA evidence. You may say that that was just a terrible thing that happened. I say they were burning DNA. Again, this is the harem attitude toward women. So this is why I like our news better. You can look at actual real people, okay, with real names, and then ask those same questions in research. And we now have Jaquia in that house at Sprayer until November 2014, until it's sold to Hina Alvey. Now, for some reason, the Washington Post wants to say it was sold 5 months later. It wasn't. It was sold in November 2014. And then we have Jaquia living there till April moving from there, when it gets sold to Hina Alvi from Ken Janiak, we have her moving from the sprayer house right before Laurel gets in there, really, from November 2014 to April 2016. Supposedly she lives at this other address. Now, she's also arrested for speeding, and her last post, this is Jaquea, her last post is on the 19th of June. And it really appears that that's where she goes from being a free woman into this kind of kept woman. Maybe she was a kept woman in here, but this is where she's trying to get away on the 20th. Anyway, she doesn't post again till mid-September, which is very odd for a young person, beautiful young person who's 24, who's got 1,000 friends on Facebook. It just doesn't make sense to me that a woman wouldn't be posting more often than this. Again, if you take the harem mentality that women are chattel, then you have to look at what is really happening with the. Now remember, Imran has the beating incident in 2015, and he has the beating incident in 2016. So we don't know if those correlate with these dates or not. We've never seen any of the people from Luke Rosiak has quoted these people, but he's never shown a picture of Galani. He's never shown a picture of Salam, or whatever her name is supposed to be, or Sadiq. No pictures. Again, a very bad sign. The picture of the witness that supposedly said they saw Raul Abbas, no picture. The Cristal, Champagne, Charisse, Pepignon. So, and I'm sorry, we're still loading here. So I was going to talk about Ken Janiak here. We'll introduce him in the next video. The person who sold this house in November 2014. He was actually dead 5 years earlier, so it's going to be his widow that sells it. He's going to be involved in medical sales. Again, he's an expert for selling into the medical industry for the VA hospital systems. He worked for the Army for many years in Army procurement. It doesn't look good when you then add to the fact that there's a Loretta Hendricks at this same address that ends up going to a VA hospital in Chicago and goes to a VA hospital up by Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. We'll develop that in the next story, but I just wanted to comment on how in this form of news you can actually start doing something and being active and trying to solve a crime. Even in stories where you're waiting for information, like this story, if we don't solve the first crime, the crime that occurred today at 1:11 in the morning, we can at least work on solving this crime, which was the Dumbo dropping. Okay, that's it for this morning.